All right, welcome to Bold Like a Leopard. We are joined today by, as always, my best collaborator, Just My Stupid Opinion from Canada, as well as from the real Canada. Just kidding. Uh, my other friend, Johnny Vito. Say hi, guys. You guys have to take yourselves off mute. Oh, wait. I was on mute. So, sorry, I just introduced you guys. Can you introduce yourselves?
Oh yeah. Hey guys. I'm Johnny Vito, I guess, for the purpose of this conversation.
And we have, of course, Adrian, Just My Stupid Opinion. Say hi.
God damn it, Bold. What a fucking fail. You goddamn boomer.
Exactly.
How you doing today?
I wouldn't be surprised if I have the. Oh crap! I have the I have the stream not on mute either on my desktop. So anyway,
So
the
nobody
topic
hears
today
us.
is U.S. foreign aid to other countries, and we were kind of debating a little bit how to do this, but we've settled on a more free-flowing discussion. So I am pretty standard. Uh, I just oppose the U.S. having its foreign relations done through just giving foreign aid to literally any country. I think it's best done through trade and through relationships that are done below the state level, through companies and through individuals. And I would say in some rare cases, and usually for a more limited time, it's
But wait, I
acceptable.
just have one question for that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Would you consider that foreign aid?
Hello?
Yeah. You hear me?
Yeah.
So
Adrian,
tell me,
Adrian, I
would
can
you
hear. I think I can hear something in the background, Adrian.
Oh, okay, hold on. I'll mute myself when I'm not talking.
yeah, he's probably just with his children or something. Anyway, yeah, I just wanted to know, wouldn't you consider that being inherently foreign aid?
No, no.
Okay. So you're
Foreign aid is state sponsored support. In financial or in terms of goods. We used to send rice to Vietnam and hogs to Vietnam and things like that during the war, and that's the type of foreign aid I'm talking about. So anything that is the U.S. giving either financial or goods in kind to a foreign country in order to keep them our ally.
okay, so you're against all of that.
Yes.
Okay. You're against it even when it benefits the better of mankind in several fashions.
Well, that's a subjective definition, but assuming it does benefit mankind, I think you'd have to you could probably put it several different ways. You could say that it
Well, you want me
benefits.
to make a case for it?
Yeah,
Do you
go
want me to
ahead.
make a case for it right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you prepared to tell me that Israel, as a democracy, doesn't benefit from United States goods and vice versa?
No, that's not the question. I'm
Okay,
not
then
even.
explain.
Are you said? Sorry, is it my turn?
Yeah, I'm asking you. I'm
Okay.
asking you to explain. Then I'm asking you to explain. Then
Right. So what's going on is that we're couching every single relationship on some sort of ideological tie between, in this case, the U.S. and Israel, and this is something that's not even unique to that. We do the same thing when they say,
okay,
well,
but
we have to
America.
hold on.
Okay, go for it.
So when we have the same situation with Colombia having to send them and then so I think it's in the billions now in military equipment in order to fight the drug war. They make the same case. We're fighting narcotics. We're fighting, communists down there. We're fighting guerrillas. We're fighting paramilitaries and all that. Well,
Look, I'm
there's
not making
never
the case for them,
no.
and I
But
don't,
hold
and
on.
I guess the position. Yeah, okay, go
You're
for
not
it.
giving me
Go
a
for it.
chance.
Sorry.
So every time we have to start this whole ridiculous justification by saying country A is benefiting the world by virtue of who they are. when in reality the U.S. would be just as fine if corporations and individuals who want to do business with country A, whatever it is, whether it's Colombia, whether it's Israel, whether it's the Philippines, whether it's Greece, they can do it themselves. The issue is that the U.S. as a whole, the individual taxpayer, or even specifically the Treasury, has to give money or give weaponry or give civilian food aid to that country in the name of keeping that country afloat, and then that country becomes completely dependent on that aid. Excuse me, I just had this ridiculous burp right now, but I'm drinking some like really creamy coffee here. But in any
No, all
case,
good.
there's an issue of dependency. There's an issue of political systems becoming adaptive to that aid, and that's really the problem that I see going on. And then people wonder why there becomes this upswelling of opposition to this aid. They wonder why suddenly it becomes a political football, because when the aid itself is a goal, people start to wonder where that goal really accomplishes anything.
Yeah, in my opinion, you're reading way too deeply into this. The point of it is that it's whether it's especially if it's weaponry, okay, if it's going to a place like Israel, okay, in this specific situation, okay, like for the case for Israel, okay, and I guess I should make my point beforehand that I don't support foreign aid to all countries, but I do support foreign aid to places where there are special relationships with the United States. For example, Honduras, who literally cut their police force in something like a half just because they wanted to stem corruption. And they've really developed strong relationships and have benefited from foreign aid. If I'm under the right assumptions, from both the U.S. and Israel. So
I wouldn't say
I
so.
don't know.
I think if you're going to use Honduras as an example, it's one of the most corrupt countries in the world right now.
I'm not saying that it's not one of the most corrupt countries, but I'm saying that they've really taken the right steps in order to stem corruption.
No, they have a president right now who is he's rigged elections. He's gone and basically turned the country into essentially a dictatorship, and this is somebody who I would consider a right winger, because I actually know some people. There's a fair amount of Hondurans over here, and politically I don't know if I align much with them, but they would all agree across the political spectrum that Honduras as a country has become just a dump thanks to that type of foreign aid, and it's also it's something it's been an issue of the U.S. going back. If you're going to talk about Latin America, especially being an example, it's the best. Example.
I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying it's perfect. I think don't get me wrong. It's not perfect.
Failure. That's what it is. That's what I would call it. American foreign aid to Latin America has been a failure, and this is something I've done a lot of research on for a long time. I mean, I don't know if you really want to go look back. We've supported countries over there several times, whether it's Dominican Republic or Haiti or Panama, that we've had to invade and reinvade and prop up and send aid over there. And then people start to think, well, really, couldn't the issue be that these countries are being intervened in too often, that they can't sort themselves out? And it could be that if we don't invade, they would still be screwed up like Haiti is. But we've been into Haiti 3 or 4 times. We've been into a lot of these countries, and it seems to be that the more America seems to stay over there, the more they don't seem to like us.
I'm not saying America has to go there. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you have to see the positive benefits in things like humanitarian aid, for example. Do you consider that foreign aid?
I do. Yes, I do. I consider that foreign
aid. Okay. So is that a bad thing? Because Israel sent plenty of troops to countries when they needed help. Or, for example, there are new technologies that develop water from air help out a lot of countries, including the United States, in places where there's massive drought.
Yeah, emergency aid happens when there's anything happening in Haiti is fine, but if you have a long-term policy where you have foreign aid being directed, and I'm talking about any form, whether it's humanitarian or infrastructure or loans or military aid, any of that as a long-term plan for trying to sustain these countries, that's a recipe for dependency. That's not a recipe for a good relationship.
Okay, that's different. That's a different thing. I'm agreeing with you on that. I'm not disputing that at all. I think there are a lot of long-term consequences in those cases.
Well, Adrian,
I think that if countries get into those circumstances in the first place is already an issue.
Let's hear Adrian. So
I just wanted to say one last thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just wanted to say one last thing. The reason why I think you're looking too deeply into this is because I was making the point that I'm for a foreign aid that in the end benefits America. And when I say that it's better for mankind, I say it because I strongly believe that a strong America means a stronger free world. And I don't mean for it to sound cliche or anything, but that's truly what I believe. That's my opinion on the situation. That's the circumstance in which I said that I'm for foreign aid in that case.
Okay, I want to bring Adrian in. Go ahead.
Well, it kind of sounds like the way you're talking about foreign aid, though, it kind of sounds a lot like it has to do with nation building. And I mean, maybe that's not what you meant, but that's kind of the way I took out of it. And when I think about how successful that's been for the U.S. in the recent years, you really can't point to much. I mean, most of the time people go back and point to what happened with Japan after the Second World War, or even the way that America, I don't remember the name, the Marshall Plan, I believe it was called, where billions of dollars were used in order to rebuild Europe after the Second World War. But when I think more modern day examples, it hasn't really worked out that well. Plus, the other problem I think I have with a lot of, like, especially when we're talking about sending like specifically money, like maybe not resources, but money overseas to different countries, is the fact that it depends where you're sending it to, because there's been plenty of situations in war-torn areas. Like you could probably look at some places such as like Somalia or some African countries where they've tried to, not just through America, but through other NGOs and charities, they try and give
this
money
100%
over
agree
there.
with you. I just want to say that. I 1,000,000% agree with you, especially on the situation like United Nations, for example. Like I have a big problem with especially money from the United Nations going to certain places.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, and then when you say like sort of, then you say like you want to have.
By the way, I just want to interrupt you for one last time. I'm sorry, guys. This is a 2-on-1. I just want you to know.
No, go ahead.
So everybody watching, this is for everybody watching. This is a 2-on-1. So, bear with me. I'm gonna take these fumbles and I'm gonna get these touchdowns.
It didn't have to be this way.
I did ask for it. Yeah, I did ask for it. Hey, it's Johnny Vito. Don't worry about it. Hey.
Anyway, right, you were going to
say? No. Go ahead. I just wanted to say that.
Okay. Well, what I was going to add on to that is after you say like you agree with this, then can you point to some situations in recent years, within the last, let's say, like 2 or 3 decades, where the sort of policy that you're talking about has actually been successful and has paid off for the states?
Okay. Israel. Is that a bad one?
No. Yes, it is a bad one. It's a horrible example.
But why? Why is it a bad one?
Because the example. So here's the issue. Okay, so I'm going to ask both of you guys: are we going to make this an issue of foreign aid in general, or are we going to make it the issue of that specific example of American foreign aid in relationship with Israel?
Can I just say one thing? And I think this is just going to generate some conversation right now, and maybe possibly bring something up. But I think you guys presuppose that America having a direct influence on a country means that country is going to be exactly like America. Not all countries are going to end up like Tokyo, for example. I mean, like Japan, excuse me, that have like big cities like Tokyo, which is exactly what I'm talking about when I say Honduras isn't perfect, but I've seen the president at APAC come in and talk about how he's. I mean, look, maybe he wasn't truthful. From what you're telling me, maybe I haven't done my research enough. But from what I saw, from what he said, I mean, he really took he took dramatic steps to cut the police force. Like he really did do that.
Yeah, but I think if you're going to use the examples of Israel, if you're going to use the examples of Honduras, those are
Mm-hmm.
all countries where Americans have been watching for decades as people keep saying, well, we have to keep pumping foreign aid into these countries in order to keep the situation stable or in order to prop up this status quo. And the status quo is not really amazing over there. So
Well,
this is the
let
way
me
I would
ask you
explain it.
something.
Hold on.
Okay.
I'll explain really
Okay, I have a question after.
the problem with foreign aid, especially in the modern 21st century, is that a lot of the relationships that it was built on are relics of the Cold War, and I could give numerous examples. And once the Cold War was over, I think it would have been a great idea for President Bush at the time, who was a pretty bad president, to say, look, now that there is no Soviet Union, we are going to shift NATO away from this overarching expansionism, and we're going to really get into a more beneficial relationship with Russia, try to work in order to reduce tensions around the world, and get less of this military adventurism. And what did they do? They did practically the opposite. And it's not just Bush, by the way. Clinton also, he used NATO in order to enforce this vision in Europe and everything. So all of the relationships that we
I'm
have
not a fan. Not a fan either. Just so you know.
so all the relationships that we're having right now, where did the Israel American relationship start out with? It started in the Cold War. Now, I'm not saying that the U.S. should have just kicked
I mean, they didn't really just start in the Cold War. I mean, these, these wars are highly ideological. I mean, it's not
yeah
just
the idea the
one
idea
way of looking at it.
the issue
You know.
is that when you continue to have a relationship that's predicated on confrontation, which is
Hmm.
really what's going on here, you're going to see a lot of backlash, and that's what's been happening in the United States here. Not just, mind you, with people on the left. You have a lot of people who are what I would call, non-interventionist libertarians who are saying, well, really, the United States after the Cold War, there's no reason to be sending money to Saudi Arabia. There's no reason to send it to Israel. There's no reason to, or military aid, sorry, no reason to send it to Egypt. And instead, the U.S. has consistently insinuated itself into the region. We have more and more entanglements over there. And even when the president, in this case President Trump, shows
Yeah.
signs of wanting to extract the U.S. from those entanglements, we have a lot of lobbyists that try to say, well, we belong there in order to make sure things don't go wrong. And the foreign aid is a part of that entire mindset. So that's really the problem that many Americans are having, and it crosses the ideologies, it crosses party lines, and people are really asking for trouble the more they say, well, this foreign aid is essential to the relationship.
Hmm. Hmm. No, I mean, in many respects, I agree, but I just fundamentally disagree with you on the point that I think that foreign aid is just fundamentally wrong to send to all countries, and I think that I think that to the root of the situation, I think we both agree in many situations that it's healthy for countries to have a level of foreign aid. Like for example, from my understanding, that it's special credit that these Israelis get for foreign aid from the United States, and they basically have to use this credit in order to buy goods from the United States.
Yeah, that's the big justification. And
Correct.
you want to know
Wait,
what the
wait.
problem with
Let
that
me
is?
let me finish. Let me finish though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I finish? I'm just asking if that's correct so far. That's the correct assumption so far.
The assumption is correct. That
Wait. Okay. Okay.
okay.
So hold on. Okay. So now the Israelis get this weaponry, Not only do they use it, but they also develop this weaponry as well. On top of that, they're really on the front lines of terrorism. I mean, yes, I admit there have been a lot of terrorist attacks in the United States and in the world in general. But I mean, Israel is really on the front lines of terrorism. I mean, they have to suffer from it on a near daily basis, if not on a daily basis.
Well, Adrian, you live in Ottawa. Aren't you in the front lines of terrorism with that Parliament attack?
Oh, yes, exactly. Exactly.
So,
It's a scary
so,
thing.
so let
It's a
me.
scary thing.
Can I? Do you have more to say, or can I respond?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, so Israelis build this weaponry. They fight on the front lines in order to not only defend themselves, but defend the world from this. So they give their intel to United States. The money for the weaponry goes back to America. The weaponry goes back to America more developed. I mean, I just see it as a win-win situation.
So I don't see it as a win-win situation at all. I see it as a
Okay, go
win-win
for it.
situation for defense contractors. I see it as a win-win situation for people who are, who have a stake in the arms race. I see it as a win-win situation for people who want to continue this paradigm of having endless war, not just on the American side, but people who are on the other side as well. And really,
I'll answer this.
that's a problem. Okay,
Okay.
when we
Okay.
have when we have the United States saying we're going to give $4 billion to a country, so that country can give that $4 billion to U.S. arms manufacturers. Well, those arms manufacturers, they don't have a brake pedal. They're not going to say, whoa, stop there, stop. We don't. You're giving us too much money. What is this? They're not going to tell you, oh, the casino's upstairs. Are you gonna go get married downstairs? We have a full suite.
You're
If you have more money,
you're living in La La
no,
Land.
I'm
The
not
Russians
I am not living in La La
are the
Land.
Russia are the
That's the
Russians are the
way.
Russians not giving money? Are the Russians not giving money to any countries next to Israel?
That the issue
Is
I'm
Iran not
talking
doing
about.
it? Is Iran
They're
not doing
doing
it?
that. They're doing that.
So
And
so
the
so what
issue.
do you think the alliance is between the United States and Israel?
The alliance is exactly as you described it. It's in order to subsidize these defense industries that are entirely aimed at developing more and more expensive weapons that are, in many cases, they're white elephants or Caucasian elephants. Sorry, guys. But the problem is we
Don't
have
kill
many
me.
weapons that have been developed in the name of so-called defense that will never ever get used, and God willing, I don't want people
I hope
to
so.
die, but the
But
real
what about the Iron Dome system or
the
David's
Iron Dome.
slingshot or the arrow?
For every Iron Dome system, there is an ocean of technology that's being developed that often never gets to the final stage and is scrapped, and that's what gets used with military aid. And again, you're separating one case because it happens to be, let's be frank, it happens to be a case that's closer to your heart. If
But
we
it
were
should be. I mean,
if we were
it should be
developing.
closer to your heart too. I mean, you went through the army, so
Yeah,
you
and
know.
I saw firsthand the way that military aid is used in order to leverage concessions from the government that the United States is claiming it wants to support. Okay, in order to prevent that government from asserting its real security concerns.
You're making it sound like you literally saw the check that the United States gave to the IDF or something, and they're like,
You don't.
"Oh, here,
You can.
Ramon, go
Yeah,
buy
you can.
go buy like 40 donuts for everybody."
No. Adrian. So I'll explain it to you. Okay, because the real problem is that people think that you can get something for nothing. And as we all know, when something is offered, there's usually something that has to go in return. And therefore, when the United States sets as a goal to create peace in the Middle East, for example, and to broker negotiations between the U.S. between Israel and the Palestinian Authority, when American aid is shipped over there, the condition in return is that Israel gives concessions in return to the Palestinians, whether or not that conforms to
Excuse me.
Israeli security concerns or not. And by the way, it should be that way, and it should be that when the U.S. sends aid to the Palestinians concede something in return to the Israelis, or concede something in return to the Americans.
I think they should concede something. I think they should concede something in return to the Americans. That's why the Americans stopped giving foreign aid to them.
Right. But you're under the assumption that this thing that happened with the Palestinians can't happen with the Israelis eventually. What will happen 7 or 8 years down the line, or even 4 years from now, or even 1 year from now, if there's a new president and that president has a different attitude towards what's going on in the Middle East or towards what's going on in any of the other countries that we send foreign aid to? That will create a situation where people will change their attitudes, and not everybody thinks that this is as essential as you guys do. I think you turned your camera on by mistake.
No, I'm want to show you something really nice.
Oh crap. We're about to move to the Pornhub stream.
Oh. So that's my dog. He's really cute. His name's Cookie. And that's my view. So I'm just chilling here, and we're debating this. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry about that. Trying to make it a little more, relaxing for the audience.
I think the audience is impressed by your derail skills.
My derail.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, Adrian, you haven't said anything.
I'm just grinding. Yeah, Adrian, it's your turn.
Yeah, I was just letting you two go at it a little bit. The other thing I would add in with that we need to discuss is because we've been talking a lot about resources, and we've been talking a lot about money that's going out. But I find, especially with certain relationships, like for instance, the one that the United States has with Israel, you also have to factor in that having military personnel put into the field is also something else that you're going to have to deal with when it comes to foreign aid. So if Israel gets attacked or Israel goes to war, the close relationship between the two is going to mean that U.S. troops are going to have to be put into the field in order to assist them. Now, the thing is that beneficial to the U.S. when that ends up happening, because they're putting U.S. lives on the line for another country. It's not like I don't really have an example, but let's just say right now that Iran and Israel ended up going to war. Now, we know that the U.S. is going to back them up, especially for the way that things have been going.
But the Russians are going to back up the Iranians.
So, yeah, it's going to go back and forth.
Yeah, but in Russia, this is a huge difference. In Russia, there's not this civic conversation that's going on, oh, what war should we be in? Because Russia has a different social chemistry than here in the U.S. In the U.S., we don't believe,
are oppressed.
Yeah, we don't believe here in the U.S. that we should commit our troops to wars anywhere just based on arbitrary decisions.
But they don't believe that in Russia either.
That's not the difference. Is that here in the U.S., at least on paper, I know I have a viewer, Larry Gerke, who would probably laugh at this, and he's right to laugh at it. But supposedly we have this ability to tell our leaders that we don't believe in a certain priority that they set, that they say, well, we should be supporting Colombia, we should be supporting Japan, we should be supporting, in America, we're supposed to have
I don't think you should necessarily be, handing out foreign aid to every single country. I didn't really make that case, but I think that there is a certain, there really is, a certain, like you said, there is a chemistry between countries. It's a nation building thing, like Adrian said. There is a lot of nation building involved, and honestly, for me, it's a lot less about the nation building and a lot more about the nations themselves and their futures, because it's really like a gang thing almost. It's like the war of ideologies even, and it's really outside the I want to say the North American bubble. Like, people here don't understand what's going on at all. They really don't. Like, they think everything is, sunshine and rainbows and flowers everywhere else. But it's really not like that. Like, the world, I believe that there is a fundamental issue with the world right now.
Yeah, but you have to get in, like, what is that fundamental issue then? If there's a war, for example, that involves
the issue is there are socioeconomic issues. There's socioeconomic issues. There are issues with war. There are issues, for example, in Venezuela. You think I want You think I want America to send money to Venezuela? You think I want Canada to send money to Venezuela?
Does Canada send money to Venezuela?
Adrian, take this away, because I don't think
Uh,
so. Google it quick.
That's a good question. Actually, I'm not 100% on that.
You know
Although
why I'm
they
not
have at least
100%?
been showing their support towards. They have been showing their support towards fucking what's his name?
Guaido?
Oh, yeah, Juan Guido or whatever the fuck his name is. I don't think they're sending money to Venezuela, but it's possible underneath Trudeau.
Okay, hold on.
And, sending.
Okay, this is from 7 days ago.
Venezuela.
Since 2017, Canada has allocated over $55 million in humanitarian stabilization and development assistance to help respond to the effects of the Venezuela crisis. This includes over $18 million in humanitarian assistance funding to help meet the basic needs of the most vulnerable people affected by the crisis, including in neighboring countries.
Yeah, but that's
Canada
not
also
that's not to
continues to provide
Venezuela.
support
That would be to the refugees in Brazil and Colombia.
through multilateral programs and through funds managed by the Embassy of Canada to Venezuela. Exactly. Oh, the Embassy of Canada to Venezuela.
I would say that that's probably going to more the refugees in neighboring countries than I have a hard time thinking that Chrystia Freeland is handing over cash to Maduro, because she, like Adrian has said publicly, the Canadian government has been supporting the Guaido group. So I think that
they hand over funds to Abbas's pockets, basically. So
yeah, but
anything is
that's the whole
possible. Anything is
problem.
possible, you know.
Look, I don't support. So if I was to come out and say that we have to, as the United States, and you two are Canadian, I'm American, so we have we have a little bit of a different vision as
Wait,
far as our
let me ask you something. Let's stir the pot a little bit.
wait, but I need to.
Canada-U.S. relations. I want your stance on that right after this.
Well, I
Do
don't
you want
know.
to be a little more specific?
Yeah. What are
No,
you
I just
trying?
want your stance. I just want to know what you think about the Canada-U.S. relationship. Like, you think that we should keep things the way it is? You think that we should improve? You think that we should, as
I
you're
would
saying,
like
you
things
think
to improve because I think relations have been the lowest point they have been in decades. I think
I do
that's
too.
mostly between the fact that our government can't get along with the Trump administration between anything. And well, the other reason is too is they're like one of the big ones I would say, and seems pretty apparent as to how many different countries have reacted to Canada. It's Trudeau trying to push this progressive trade agreement everywhere that he goes, because it doesn't matter whether we're talking about TPP, whether we were talking about NAFTA or China. None of the other countries were really into the whole environmentalism and equality as being main factors in a trade agreement, because it's not really that important. It's really the progressive agenda that's done a lot of damage. Although the fact that Trudeau and his government have come out and pretty much pushed the Russiagate conspiracy and many other anti-Trump rhetoric, that's not doing any favors either. That's what I would argue is the main reasons why relations are at the lowest point.
Okay, bold.
Well, I mean, I don't think that the U.S. should be trying to worsen any relationship with any country, not whether it's Canada or not Canada. I mean, even further, I'll go further than this, guys. I think we should have as good a relationship with Mexico as possible, right? Because they're our neighbors, and why have useless trouble just for the sake of it? There's people affected here, there's people affected there. The more miserable they are over there, there's going to be more people coming over to our side and trying to get into our economy and everything. So
I mean, yeah, that's basically the reality.
Yeah, whether
Like,
it's
who doesn't want to
Canada,
naturalize these days?
yeah,
I
whether
mean,
it's
my dream is basically to live in Florida and just retire there for the rest of my life.
yeah, but that's the entire population of Canada.
Yeah, exactly.
But look, I think that
Maybe just Quebec.
You're talking about something completely different, okay? I think looks like I set off a plague over here.
Yeah, Adrian wants to go to Yukon territories.
I would say this.
Oh God.
we have a real problem when you're talking about this context of foreign aid being a real condition for there to be good relations. Okay, I think that of course the U.S. should continue to have a good relationship with Israel. I would hope that we would have a good relationship with Turkey, but Turkey, obviously, I think both of you would agree, has a pretty
Yeah,
screwed up government right now.
yeah, none of
So,
us
Yep.
like them. Exactly.
you,
Pointing
you
out.
know, like, are we supposed to keep giving aid to Turkey based on their
No,
behavior?
absolutely not.
No,
No,
but
absolutely not.
so I'm not going to say that Israel is behaving exactly like some of like Turkey, but there's certainly an issue when you have something like foreign aid being brought up all the time, and you have these political conferences, and Bibi is coming over here to Congress to address them when Obama is president and everything. So, unfortunately, Israel has gotten itself into a position where that foreign aid has become a dependency, and they even admit to it. And when I was in the military, there was this acknowledgement of it, that without this aid, we wouldn't be able to function. And all the time claiming, well, if we were to really, open up a can of whoop ass in the West Bank after a whole slew of terror attacks, well,
Yeah, we could just cut foreign aid.
that would jeopardize the foreign aid. So then people start to complain over there. You're talking about Israelis complaining. Well, why isn't we can't do that? Why is it that we can't actually assert our security needs? Well, if you put yourself in a leash, you should expect to get yanked, and that's really the problem. And the same thing goes for the Palestinians. If I was to go to you, Vito, and say, look, we have to continue to give foreign aid to the Palestinians, or else they'll be even worse than they are now, and they'll throw more rocks at you, and they'll do more rocket attacks at you. You would say that's a ridiculous proposition, right? So my
But
position is this.
yeah,
If we shift as many of our relationships, whether it's with Israel, whether it's with the Philippines, whether it's with I don't know, fucking Norway, whatever. We shift any country that we have a foreign aid relationship. We've shifted completely to a bilateral trade relationship. Those countries will probably be more happy in the end.
hmm well, on that note, I just want to say, um, who was it that threatened to cut foreign aid from Israel once?
That was Senator Biden.
No, not recently.
Yeah, that was when he was in the Senate, like in the 80s. Hello.
Who was it in that case that answered back something to the extent of,
Yeah, I saw that quote
we will
today.
not, we will not let the,
You're talking about Menachem Begin. So
that's it, Menachem Begin, exactly.
So Menachem Begin. So Adrian, I don't know if you know this case.
Okay, so say it exactly.
So there was a meeting back in, I think, like the early 80s, and Senator Biden was the head of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and at the time, I'm not sure what was the issue.
He's a nut, honestly. He's just a nut. He's nutty.
Well, so anyway, let me get through the story. So
Yeah,
Joe Biden was the head of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and Begin had a meeting with him in I think it was like 1983, which would have been the last year he was prime minister. And he said, if Israel doesn't, shape up and try to negotiate and get in and not, get into more messes over in Lebanon, we're going to have to cut our foreign aid back, right? So Begin said, "Well, I'm not a Jew on trembling knees. I don't need trembling knees. I don't need your foreign aid. You didn't help us with nobody came to help us when there was the gas chambers, and nobody came and helped us when we were fighting in 48 with makeshift weapons and all that." And it's taken as this statement that Israel doesn't need the foreign aid. But I would say that if that's really the feeling, then we should, if you're talking about Israel having an independent foreign policy, if it wants to say things like that, then they should refuse the foreign aid unconditionally. If that's the position you want to take, and you don't want people bossing you around, then don't accept the foreign aid, or else you have to give something back. You have to give.
Okay, but the relationship between Bibi and Trump is very good right now.
Yeah, and Trump could die tomorrow. What happens then?
Yes, but we're talking about the here and now. Okay, so what I'm saying to you is that was um, that was a more contentious relationship, I would say. The relationship you have now between Trump and Bibi is that you have a strong alliance between America and Israel. So it's the idea isn't that the idea isn't, oh, what are we going to do, kill Israel or not kill Israel? The idea is, how are we going to help them? How are they going to help us? It's a mutual thing. It's it benefits both the states.
No, you're
Whereas
thinking in the status quo. You're thinking that this can't change because it's the way it's always been since both of us were
no, I'm
born, and it's
not.
just not true.
No,
The
I'm not
fact of the
thinking that
matter
way.
is that if a recession
I'm
happens and Trump loses the election, or if or whatever, a fucking vulture flies out of the sky and yanks him away, and the Secret Service can't get him, and you get tomorrow, obviously Pence would probably also be the same thing, but let's say next year you get elected somebody like President Yang or President Adrian, who's another candidate,
someone
Kamala
who's
Harris,
anti-Israel.
whoever,
Somebody who's
then
anti-Israel.
it will change, and you can't expect things to remain the same. The people in my audience probably obviously agree more with me, but if you go through the street and you ask people, what do you think's the priority for the U.S. government right now, almost none of them would say, well, it should be to support other countries overseas, whether it's Israel or whether it's any other country, because people have real problems here. There's a lot of people dealing with addiction, with unemployment, with issues issues of some people are hyped up over this climate bullshit. There's a lot of people who have simply different priorities, and this reading that this is the most important thing right now.
I
and
don't
and
think I don't think it's the most important thing for America. I believe that the most
but
important thing for
would you
America
agree
is domestic.
a lot
In
of
terms
people
of
make
its
it seem like
domestic
that?
politics, look, I think that, look, if you're asking me if America should just isolate itself from the rest of the world, I would say no. I would say that the world would be very sorry without America as its leader, as the world leader. But if you're asking me if I think that America should open its borders and lend itself out to the world, of course not. Of course not. But I believe that there are certain strategic advantages to having relationships and alliances with countries like Israel, for example. Or if
All
you're
right.
talking
So
about Central America,
besides Israel, so you're saying Honduras. You're saying who else? The Philippines. Give other
look,
examples.
I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying it's perfect. There are other countries in the world.
No, but your whole premise this time has been it's not perfect. But the Americans are not
I'm
concerned
okay,
with
but
perfection. They're
is
concerned
okay?
they're
Is Syria
concerned with
perfect?
whether
Is Syria perfect? Is Syria perfect?
Americans are concerned not with whether it's perfect in Honduras, but whether their government is working on their behalf or on behalf of countries that we seemingly have this
Is there a
overarching
mutual
relationship with.
benefit? You're saying, is there a mutual benefit?
No, it's beyond mutual benefit. The issue is focus. Why is the United States focused on what's going on with the Hondurans or with the Filipinos or with the Palestinians or with the Turks or the Israelis or the Saudis instead of focusing on what we're doing over here? Every
Okay, but
single
there.
American president has gotten elected on a promise to focus more on domestic issues, and wonder of wonders, every one of them seems to be dragged over to some sort of conflict in some hellhole that most people can't even spell or find on a map.
I mean, it's you're reading way too deeply into it.
No, I'm reading appropriately what people are saying, and
I mean, the foreign issue. I think foreign policy as a whole really isn't affecting most Americans right now. I think
but if you turn on the
social issues
news,
are really most affecting
if you
America
turn
right
on
now,
the news,
especially
people make it
like these
seem like it
Antifa
is.
riots in Portland. Excuse me, like these Antifa riots in Portland. I mean, that's what the truth is. The truth is that social issues are much more dominate the American culture. Even I would go as far to say the American environment way more than foreign issues do. But it doesn't change the fact that I still believe that, or and I'm Canadian, but I believe that many Americans are focused on foreign policy as well. I
No,
think that
no.
foreign policy
If
is
you look at what's going on in the field, what's going on right now, Vito.
I'm listening.
Every time that there is a vote
Hmm.
on the border wall, and you see the Democrats voting as one, no funding for the border wall, but you see bipartisan support for foreign aid, especially foreign aid for Israel. That is it shows that these people are not really committed to solving domestic issues. They're for whatever reason focused on supporting foreign issues, and that's really
Okay, but
it's not good for
but
the image
I
of
think
America.
Trump has done some things in solving some of the domestic issues. At least, I mean, at least I hope. I
No,
mean,
but
he has done some
you're
good
focusing
things
on Donald Trump, and you keep bringing Donald Trump up as I
because
keep.
I'm talking
No,
about the here and now.
no, the here and now includes Congress. It includes people like Nancy Pelosi, and the idea
Hmm.
that we can just focus on one person who tomorrow could be gone is ridiculous. That's the whole
And that's
problem. When he got elected, this is a bigger issue than just foreign aid. When he got elected, Donald Trump, what did he say, guys? What was his big slogan besides "Make America Great Again"? Adrian,
tell me.
you can answer too if you want. Dra-
Oh, like jail
drain
her
the
or something.
swamp. He kept saying
Yeah,
drain the
drain the swamp.
Ah,
swamp.
Drain the
yeah.
swamp.
And
Yeah, you're right.
what's the reason that you want to drain the swamp? It's because it's a permanent class of bureaucrats and politicians and
This I agree
lobbyists,
with.
and that those lobbies include everyone. And if
This I agree with.
and no,
This I
but
agree
you're
with.
not agreeing with it because you're
No,
saying
I
that some.
am.
No, you're not. Because okay,
Okay,
maybe
tell me why not.
so you're trying to say that some lobbies have a valid proposition, right? You're trying to say that, for example, APAC, who tries to say, well, we want this support to be bipartisan and everything. Well, I'm sorry to
Okay.
tell you, but some of these issues, when you try to bridge the gap between two parties that on every other philosophical issue have a huge difference, eventually one of those parties is going to drift off, and you can't just make it this nonpartisan issue because there is a philosophical debate to be had. And I'm glad, both of you are willing to have it with me, but the issue of foreign aid will eventually become much more bitter because you do have more and more people increasingly looking askance at this and saying, is this really a priority for our government? And you can say to the end of the world that Israel is a democracy and that we're sustaining better environmental policies over there because they developed turbines and whatever, and they go through all the big medical innovations that Israel does. But again, they're going to circle back over and over again to the military aid, just like I would say we should focus on our military aid situation with other countries, which I think isn't really benefiting the United States. And
Well,
ultimately,
which countries?
Turkey.
I agree with you. Which one's next?
Uh, we send all that money to Colombia.
Okay,
I
which one's
think
next?
we send a half billion. Look, I could go through an entire list of these. Okay, if you want, I can
And
just bring up.
and if we can go through this, if
Okay,
we can go through each one, like I would do it with you,
Well,
and we would have to agree and disagree depending on the situation of the country. You understand? That's how I sort of view it. I see it more as as a strategy for the United States to carry influence, to carry a democratic influence in the world. That's my perspective on it.
Adrian, do you want to say
That's what I'm
something?
trying to explain.
well, what
Yeah.
I was going to add on to there is that you can look at it from country to country, but you can also look at it from a more from like taking a step back and looking on a grander view, because for every single dollar you send out to a foreign country, that's one less dollar that is getting spent in your own country. And I mean, we can look at America and even Canada. It's like, despite the fact how prosperous our countries are, we're still in a situation where we have like hundreds, if not thousands, of people that are living in poverty, and that's just including homelessness. That's not even people that are struggling to make ends meet. There was just something
Mhm, I
other
agree with that.
like just a couple weeks ago where there was upwards of 5,000 Canadian veterans that are living homeless on the street. Yet Trudeau was constantly sending this money out of country to like I've got a whole list actually I got saved on my phone of just
Yeah,
like the
let's
billions
read
of
some,
dollars that he sent out.
read some of the countries.
Okay,
let's
give me
have like the top 5.
2 seconds. I
Top
just gotta
5.
pull it up.
Yeah,
Want me to go
top 5.
first?
See here.
I'm interested in hearing this, and I just want you to know I 100% agree with you on that. But like, look again. Do I think that Canada should be completely isolationist? No, I don't think so. I think that it should open its doors a little bit to some countries. You know what I mean? It's important for countries to have some type of relationship with one another, because guys, we don't live in a bubble. That's what the truth is. That's all I'm trying to get at. It's healthy to have strategic relationships.
Yeah, but
and you don't have to be isolationist to do
but
that. But
Bold
you
is an
also don't have to
isolationist.
send them billions of dollars in
Bold
order
is
to
an
do that.
isolationist.
Well, I
Bold is an
keep getting
isolationist.
called an isolationist, but I don't understand when foreign aid became the token that you need to pay in order to not be an isolationist.
No,
Before
because you don't want
before World
you don't
War
want
One,
countries.
before World War One, we didn't give foreign aid to France and Britain, and we weren't called isolationists because of that. We were called isolationists because we were not engaged in World War One, and the same thing with World War Two. This idea that every international relationship has to be predicated on some sort of give is, I think, bad. I think it's a horrible way. Why is Switzerland okay? Are they isolationist because they don't give foreign aid to other countries and don't get into alliances, or are they simply neutral? Okay, it's a philosophical debate.
Yeah,
But
you're right.
a lot of
You're
people would say they're
right.
isolationist, but have you ever gotten your ass whooped by a Swiss person walking down the street because you look like really, like you're the wrong type of person? I haven't.
Let me know when you guys are ready, and I can.
Yeah, go ahead, Adrian.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, I can read it. All right, let me see here. So we've got Pakistan, $2 billion. Libya, $1.45 billion.
That's a
Haiti,
mess.
$1.4 billion. Jordan,
that's understandable.
463 million. Kenya,
Jordan.
816 million. Nigeria, 456 million. Mozambique, 404 billion. Kazakhstan, 304 million. Iraq, 1.08 billion.
As long as
Tanzania,
Borat's family got it.
554 million. And it's just like the list is much bigger than that. And that was like that list, it goes back easily a year or more. So you know that there's just that much more money that's got sent away. But meanwhile, we're finding out that more and more people are having trouble making ends meet. They said I think 50% of Canadians are within $200 of going bankrupt. But he's sending away all this money. Plus, the middle class is beginning, despite what he ran on, saying he was going to, help the middle class. They've actually been getting taxed. 87%, I think, of the middle class is actually paying more in taxes now than back in 2015. So it's it's kind of nice to say you want to give out foreign aid.
That is correct.
And at times, it's absolutely, I could agree with you. There are times where you should send the foreign aid. But I also feel that, like, if that's all you're going to do, then you're actually hurting yourself in order to try and.
The problem is I've been labeled, like, we're bringing up this debate, and I'm getting labeled as like the pro foreign aid guy here. Like,
you kind of are, dude.
I'm not. I mean, I'm not pro foreign aid for every country, but I'm into sustainable alliances with other countries. Definitely,
for the countries that you like. Is that fair?
I mean, no, it's not fair. Because I think that foreign aid benefits a lot of countries. Like, I think foreign aid even benefits Syrians, believe it or not.
No, I'll give you. So here's my examples on the U.S. list. Okay.
Let me ask you something. Let me, because I just wanted to ask you this before. Okay, before you do that, is Syria? What would you consider Syria?
What do you mean? What would I consider it?
Is it a nice country?
For sure not. It's a shithole.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, would you prefer if that country, which you refer to, as I won't say because I'll refrain from swearing, gets...
Oh wait, I forgot we weren't supposed to swear today.
It's okay, don't worry about it.
No, we did discuss, I'm not even joking. Didn't we discuss that last week? Damn it.
It's fine, don't worry about it. Okay, do you think that it's okay for Russia to be sending Syria that money to attack Israel?
That's not our business.
What about Iran?
Again,
it's not our business, right?
We have to, as the United States, we have to have a contingency based on the threats to the United States. we can't have a contingency based on the threats
But
to Iran or the threats to Syria.
Iran,
If Iran,
the threats to
unfortunately,
Syria, the threats.
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that the threats to Israel are the very same threats to the United States.
They're not the same threats to the United States. Some of them may
They are very
overlap.
much that.
Some
They are
some
very
of
much.
them some of them may overlap, but you can't say that the same priorities that the USA has are the same as any country, whether it's Britain, whether it's Israel, whether it's Chad. Any country that is not the United States does not share the same priorities as the United States. And furthermore, if you go to some of these countries where we're supposedly paying part of their security budget, I mean, I have up on the map here. You have Kazakhstan. We give them $8.5 million appropriated. That's not a lot of money, but a lot of it is for peace and security, meaning, we give it to their government. Okay, Kazakhstan, a country that's rich in natural gas and other minerals. You go to Turkmenistan, this totalitarian dictatorship, $4.1 million a year. Also another country that's rich in natural resources. You go to Iraq, a country that we ravaged and destroyed, $403 million. So the more we seem to get involved in these countries, the worse they seem to be. So I would say, unfortunately, we've gotten our dicks into the wrong holes this entire time. And sorry, I mean, I guess we're not going to be able to share this everywhere, right? So, but we're really America as a concept. America, as it was originally founded, was not supposed to be the policeman of the world, and it certainly
No,
wasn't
I agree
supposed
with
to be
you,
the lone maker of the world.
and I agree with you on that. It's not supposed to be. But I think that a world led by the United States is a world led is a better world than any led by any other country. If you ask me, like
No,
what
it's
you want
not.
Canada to
We're
lead the
not.
world. I mean,
We're not talking about.
I mean, I'd like for
You're
that.
talking
I'd like
about
for that to be.
You're talking about positive effects, but Sudan over here, Sudan, which is an awful country, just massacred a lot of its citizens. $154 million appropriated. You go south of there, which is a country that hates Sudan, South Sudan, $453 million. So we're giving money to countries that they hate each other. You have Egypt. I mean, I'm moving across the map here. There's $1.4 billion to Egypt appropriated.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
people don't talk about that. I agree with you. Sometimes people focus too much on the aid to Israel. But you have to, if you look at the entire picture, we're really not getting anything accomplished by sending all this money to any of these countries, because in some cases, these countries hate each other. We're sending money to Lebanon. Would you say Lebanon is a country that you consider sympathetic?
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm agreeing with you on many of these instances. I told you that. I 100% told you that. Look, I don't think that the U.S. foreign aid policy is perfect. I don't think it's perfect at all. But that's the point that I'm getting at. That foreign aid in certain cases, I'm not saying in every single case, it's important. Which is why I'm saying, as long as America or Canada for that matter don't close their doors, I'd like to see a Canada lead the world one day. Why not? Obviously, it's not going to be in my lifetime. Obviously, especially now with Trudeau as prime minister. But right now, the realistically, let's talk about the facts. The facts is that
You guys do lead the
the United
world
States is the world. Yeah, in certain cases,
growing
yeah.
weed plants.
Hey, it's Vito. Wait. In excuse me, in certain instances, it is important for alliance building. That's what the truth is. And if you don't see any type of benefit in foreign aid, and in that case, I really would have to consider you an isolationist. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, you're literally closing your doors to the rest of the world.
No, because closing the doors would mean that we are becoming a completely protectionist country, which I don't see you objecting to the tariff policy of Donald Trump, which is, if you were that's an isolationist belief. Tariffs. I mean, Adrian, you would agree with that too, right? If you were to put up a lot of tariffs, that's an isolationist policy. That's something that Trump gets criticized for all the time. Yet, strangely enough, you never seem to bring it up. And
I mean,
isolationism would mean that we would be cutting off our interactions with the rest of the world. And my position is, which I don't consider to be isolationism. If you want to call me an isolationist, I don't take it to heart. But we should predicate
no,
all of
I'm
our
actually part trolling. I just want you to know that.
I know, but we should predicate as many of our relationships on on trading with these countries. If we can get rid of the tariffs, we get rid of them. If countries don't trade fairly, we do have to tariff them. But the idea that we're going to give money over to other countries, and if it
And it doesn't
includes,
come back.
if it doesn't matter if it comes back, because let me explain this to you, and you're just going to have to listen for a second. So
Go for it.
this idea that when we appropriate $4 billion and we give it to, in this case, Israel, but it's not only Israel, other countries have similar but smaller sums that they get, and they are obligated to spend it with our defense industry. What do you think happens? You get these companies that decide, well, we have this money coming our way anyway, and we can basically spend as much as we want in order to um, research and blah blah blah, and create all of these accounting wormholes where they suddenly a project that should have taken 4 years turns into a project that takes 16 years, for instance, like the F-35 program. Titanic waste of money. I think it ended up costing, in order to develop the F-35, I could be wrong, but I think it ended up costing about $1 trillion. So I would say that this type of relationship, it actually causes less security, and it causes more of this arms race that doesn't make anyone safer. In fact, wouldn't it be fair that if we were developing all of these beyond space age weapons, so are the Soviets or the Russians, whatever, so are the Chinese. We're leading to a new, darker world where we're continuously at war. That's what we were supposed to move away from when the Cold War ended. And unfortunately, we can't control the behavior of countries like China and Iran and Liechtenstein or whatever. But
But in certain cases, we do need to be involved. That's what I'm saying.
So no. In certain cases, we have to be more judicious, and we have to focus on ways that we can make the United States less vulnerable by spreading ourselves out less. And that's really the problem with the American military-industrial complex. They have no incentive to let us draw back. They have no incentive to have us remove our troops from Italy and Germany and other countries that are part of NATO. Because if we have less of a footprint in those countries, their tab gets smaller every year. They want to increase their share price, right? So I know that you think that people who are quote unquote isolationists, they're being or they might be kind of focusing too much on Israel, but I am trying to say this. The more we continue on this model, the less likely it is that we'll have a safer world for any of these countries, and that includes Israel, and that includes Lebanon, that includes any of the countries out there, Egypt, whatever you want to call it. The more, how many weapons do we sell to Egypt when Egypt hasn't even been at war since, I think, like the mid 70s? What's the purpose? Who's going to invade Egypt now?
Can I go?
Yeah, I mean, whoever.
Okay. You want to say something, Adrian?
No, go for it.
Okay. So no, in this case, I was just going to say, at this point, you understand why it's important for certain countries to get that I guess you could say special treatment, if that's really what you want to refer to it as. I mean, I really think that it's important for especially in this instance where you have a country like Israel who really does benefit the United States greatly and benefits the world greatly. It's important for them to be able to not only defend their sovereignty, but sort of be the cowboys in their realm as well, and they don't really have a choice either,
So
because they do have to fight off.
Why can't they just buy the weapons?
Hold on, let me finish. Hold on, let me finish. But okay, well, they do in that instance, because they just get credit from United States. They get the money they get from the United States. They use to buy the weapons.
Yeah, that's called corporate welfare. We have a term for that here. That's corporate welfare. We're basically Israel is an instrument for which Lockheed Martin gets a subsidy. That's really that's the real problem. I have no problem for you if you're going to propose that there be a relationship between Israeli companies. Let's say Rafael, for example, if they want to have a relationship with an American company and
Yeah, I don't. I
develop.
don't think it's. What I'm saying is, I don't think it's actual. I don't think it's actual money. I think it's credit, from my understanding. They get a certain amount of credit.
Yeah, the United States appropriates money from its treasury. That money goes to the Israeli government, and the Israeli government has to spend it with American firms.
Okay.
That's the way it works.
So, so in the end, the money benefits the defense budget for the United States.
No, it benefits defense
But it
contractors, corporations.
but didn't we already establish that the inventions from Israel already benefit the United States?
In some cases, if they get developed, but what use is the Iron Dome? Technically, you could use the Iron Dome, develop it for other missile systems too, but
That's what they're doing. They're
not
doing it
every
with David
technology.
Slingshot. What about the arrow? David Slingshot, for example, developed by joint American Israeli efforts.
Yeah, they could do that on a company basis. If the Israeli company and the American company want to sign some sort of joint development
But
agreement,
but
there's no
both
problem.
militaries are
There's
involved.
there's
Both
no
militaries are
reason.
involved.
Yeah, if the Israeli military and the American military want to do this joint development issue, then that should be approved by Congress. But it shouldn't be subsidized by the Treasury directly. It shouldn't be some sort of arrangement that's brought up before Congress. We're going to hand over this massive basket of dollars to another country, whatever country that is, and say to them, well, you have this sum of money that you can choose as much. We're going to give you store credit to a corporation that has its own lobbyists in Washington trying to urge the U.S. Navy to buy ships it doesn't have, because that's really the priority for those companies. The priority for these companies isn't to make the world safer; it's to make the government buy more weapons.
Yeah, no, I look on many instances. Like I said, I don't disagree with you. If you think that that is an instance of as you say corporate welfare, look,
If it's not corporate welfare, what is it?
I look, I think that the strategic alliance, like I said, I think that the strategic alliance, and look, I hate for it to just sound so repetitive, but I really just come back to that point that I think that the alliance is important. I think that the influence that the United States has in the Middle East, especially because of Israel, is tremendous. I
Yeah, but
think that
you're using
a lot of
first
the
of all, you're using one example which you have a personal stake in anyway, but you're looking at it as if that's the only way that relationship can go, and I'm explaining you a different way it can go. So
no,
you're
I'm not,
real yeah, yes you are,
I'm
because
saying,
I'm
well,
explaining that if you have corporations in the United
mhm.
States and you have corporations in Israel and they
But we're
have.
talking about this instance with the weapons. That's what I'm saying.
Yes, and I'm saying if these two corporations, an Israeli defense contractor and an American defense contractor, they want to create this new type of technology, they should be able to apply for a license or a permit from both of their governments. And if they're approved, they can do it. And if the militaries want to buy it, that's fine. But the idea that we're going to dump money into the system in order to make it work is, in my opinion, that's corporate welfare. There's no other way to define it. It's the same way that we subsidize sports stadiums over here. We tell the people in any city you can pick, Cincinnati, for example, you tell them this baseball stadium is going to bring all of these jobs to the area, and then the baseball stadium shows up, and there's not there's not that many jobs. With the case of the defense contractors in the specific cities where they operate, yeah, for a while you might get some added employment and
I
stuff like
think
that.
I think I think you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But
Go for it. Sorry.
but
Sorry for
the,
interrupting.
the
Go
the
for it.
issue is, does this create a sustainable financial model? And in my opinion, it doesn't. Eventually, we end up getting these systems in the wrong hands in many cases. The fact of the matter is that we've sent shoulder-fired surface-to-air missiles to, in some cases, jihadist groups, because when you create that technology, Vito, you release it to the people who are in charge. And who was in charge of our administration for the past during the past administration? You had people like John Kerry and people like that other freak, the one that looks like a gorilla, John Brennan. So you have these idiots that are in charge, and the Trump administration isn't full of diamonds either. I mean, we have John Bolton, the Walrus of Doom. So I am somebody who says, rather than have the American taxpayer, already undersigned to this bill where we send money to these corporations in the name of quote unquote security around the world, we do a more responsible relationship. We allow corporations to have relationships with foreign corporations if the State Department and the Defense Department deems it acceptable. And then if the government wants to pay for that missile system, if the government wants to pay for that, armored carrier or something, whether it's the Israeli government or the American government, they can agree to terms, and that's fine. I don't think that we should just send the money over just arbitrarily or appropriate the money ahead of time and say, well, we hope something comes out of it. That's not the type of sustainable plan that I believe in.
Yeah. So in case you're just reaching into the chat, not into the chat, sorry, into the YouTube live stream right now. It's a 2-on-1 battle where I am getting completely mollywopped. Basically.
We have Sylar's in the chat.
Let's answer some questions.
Do we have any questions?
Let's answer some comments at least.
Okay, Kiana wants to ask, who is this we?
We about what?
I don't know.
Maybe about like North America, we, Canada, United States.
No. Look, I mean, I don't think if we were to go to war as the United States, do you two as Canadians think that Canada should be obligated to participate?
Obligated, like we have no choice.
That's a personal question for me. I mean, for me, if America were to go to war as a Canadian, only because I really believe that the relationship is strong between Canada and the United States, I would say that, depending on the situation, especially, it might be appropriate to send some troops. Okay, that's personal. That's very personal.
So to the Iraq War, when Canada sent troops to help the United States in the Iraq War, would you consider
you mean
that
the Afghan war?
No, I thought you guys sent troops to Iraq too.
Nope.
Afghanistan.
Okay, so
that was actually my point I was going to bring up, was the fact that Canada actually refused to send troops into Iraq when that happened. We did go into Afghanistan after 9/11. Although a lot of people believe that one of the main reasons we didn't send troops to Iraq is the fact that we have like 3 people in our military. We didn't have enough troops to actually fight in both countries. But that was to answer my question on it, is I would say I don't think that anybody should be obligated to go to war for another country. But if you have a good relationship, then you should be more willing to. So I wouldn't want to go fight an offensive war for America. But if America was attacked, I absolutely would be prepared to jump in and help defend it. I would want to do that for you guys.
So do you guys agree then with the decision? I don't know if it was Chrétien or Martin who decided not to insert Canada into the Iraq War?
You know what? Yeah, I would say I did. I can't remember. I think it was Chrétien at the time. Sorry, but I think it was Paul Martin actually at the time.
What about you, Vito?
Yeah, no, I would say yes, only because, again, you shouldn't be obligated, and it was it made sense with Afghanistan after what happened on 9/11, that it's that's where we trace back, that's where we were tracing back where Osama bin Laden was. But then when it was there was people trying to justify that that Iraq was also part of what happened on 9/11, which is not true. So I would say between the two, yeah, I think it was justified that they said no, not to go to war.
Okay, and you, Vito?
Honestly, I haven't. I don't have. I'll be honest. I'm not. Totally insightful on that topic. I agree with a lot of what Adrian says. I mean, look, as a Canadian, I it's tough to see another Canadian go down.
Hmm.
We don't. There's not really a lot of us. Proportionately, what we offer to the world is nowhere near the amount of foreign aid that United States does. But we
But for a
do.
country your size, you give a lot of foreign aid in terms of population,
I
right?
mean, not really. I mean, not anywhere near the numbers that Americans do, for example.
So like to steer back. I mean, Lenin was actually at Lenin McCarthy, one of my viewers, not Lenin the revolutionary, but he was talking about
Go for it.
So we have a presidential candidate, Marianne Williamson, who's the Orb mother, and she was apparently saying that we should stay in Afghanistan for the benefit of women's rights. Now, I would say, look, let's assess her point. I haven't seen her comment yet. I haven't been able to take a look, but I would assume that it has to do with the fact that the Taliban was incredibly oppressive to the women in Afghanistan. However, we can't manage the relations of countries with their own private citizens and everything.
No,
So
I don't think United States should be doing that.
so yeah, therefore we would all agree that there's a limit to how much we can insert ourselves into the internal affairs of other countries. I mean, there was also the issue that
Definitely.
there was child sex trafficking within the Afghan. I think even the Afghan military, while the U.S. has been involved there. So, like, I think we're really, the more countries we get into, and obviously, Johnny, you would agree that Afghanistan's a different situation from Honduras and a different situation from Israel. But there's a real problem the more we stretch our forces out across the world and we get into situations that I don't think that James Madison, when he created our Constitution, would have envisioned that the United States would have to defend a country from the exploitation and suppression of women, according to a woman who's running for president now, Marianne Williamson. So, yeah, I think really my position is this. Okay, I know that a lot of people are against foreign aid to Israel simply because they don't happen to trust Israel. They might not even like Jews. In fact, one of my viewers right now is one of those people. But the fact
Yeah.
is,
By the way, Sylar, he is Canadian. Bold is Canadian. And by the way,
that's a lie.
whoever asked me if I voted for Trudeau,
That's him too.
let me ask you, what do you guys think? Do you think I voted for Trudeau? Do you really think I voted for Trudeau? I mean, really?
I think you voted for Singh.
Well, you are from Quebec.
No, I voted for Singh. You're right. I voted for Singh. Funny story. I met him. He's actually a decent guy. He's actually very decent to meet.
Well, you
His
see,
I believe
policies
he's a
stink.
nice guy,
Yeah,
He stinks.
but I just think he's retarded.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't stink he didn't smell or anything. I just don't like the guy. Like, I mean, maybe I don't dislike him. He wasn't a bad guy, but just his policies just couldn't. Can't really deal with them.
yeah, for
I
you
just wanted to say that.
Americans, we're talking about Jagmeet Singh, who's one of the Canadian politicians running for prime
For the New
minister
Democratic Party.
And he's going to fail.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't-
he's already failed basically epically.
I don't think he's
Oh,
doing
yeah.
very well.
No, he's not. He's not doing very well at all. I mean, it's basically gonna end up most likely a liberal win, I would say, unless somehow Canada can pull together, because every one of the provinces are. I mean, I think every one of the provinces right now are conservative, if I'm not mistaken.
Just about. I think it's Newfoundland and Labrador that's still liberal.
That's
but
liberal?
Other than that,
Yeah.
other than that, it's mostly BC is like the coalition between the Greens and the NDP. But yeah, like
Oh yeah,
all the
that's right.
center,
BC also, it's true.
Wait, so are you
yeah,
are you
but pretty
saying
much from Quebec all the way to Alberta, it's conservative governments, including
Exactly.
PEI.
are you saying Vito
Yeah, exactly.
that you think that the Liberals will win this election?
Yeah,
Okay. And
I
I'm
just think
predicting
that-
a conservative minority.
I just think that I think that the PPC dividing, well, not really the PPC. I think Max, leaving the Conservative Party, sort of divided the Conservatives.
Oh,
in
no,
the country.
you're not wrong about that. I mean, I just
Yeah,
see them bitching at each other on Twitter all the freaking time. So you're not wrong on that. It definitely
yeah,
divided
they
them.
really, yeah. There's a lot of animosity between them. It's true. It's
The
true.
thing is, though, is we look at the polling for the PPC, the PPC, and I mean, when Max first left, I actually was sort of more on, I was more on his side. Like I was excited for what he's going to do. Since then, I've more or less fallen off the PPC train. He kind of disappointed me, but
I mean, I'll be honest with you.
he's
Like
pretty much just sitting at
nobody's
4%
impressive,
across the
honestly.
board. No, you're right. None of them are impressive.
It's sad to say that Trudeau. I mean, as much as he's not the best one, he's like kind of the most impressive, honestly. You know, Shear's just like what's his name, Gumby. That's what they
Yeah,
call him, Gumby. That's what they call him here.
milk
I mean,
toast.
I mean, he's not bad. He's not bad. He's just not better than he's just a more right wing Trudeau. That's really what he is.
And even then, you're not putting it's not far off. Like he's
Yeah,
really not
exactly.
that
I
right
mean,
wing in comparison.
Well, I'll tell
yeah,
you
I mean
guys.
we're Canadians, so anything to the right of like Eggo waffles is basically like fascism. I mean,
So I mean, you guys both know about because I chat with both of you guys offline, but so I've been
what?
researching a lot of
I'm just joking.
the climate change movement in Canada and the U.S. But in the past week or so in Canada. By the way, Adrian, I have to send you something. But
Okay. Oh, I know what you're gonna send me. Yeah.
yeah. So in any case, I would say that based on my survey of Canadian politics, a lot of the political system is simply completely detached from the everyday concerns of average citizens, and that's because of the climate change debate. Because look, I think there is larger concern for climate change in Canada than there is in the U.S. But it sounds ridiculous to me that according to a recent Huffington Post survey, 29% of Canadians feel that climate change is the most important issue because if I was to wager, if you talk to somebody from rural Ontario, or especially some of the western prairie provinces, or even the eastern seaboard, I have no clue why they would be obsessed over that. Maybe as an American, I don't really pay attention to your media, CTV and Maclean's or whatever, but it just seems like there's like a huge gap between the media and its focus on climate change and the average citizen. But you know, am I wrong about that?
No, I think
Wait,
that's
say
pretty accurate to say.
wait, say could you just repeat that? I'm sorry.
So I see there's even more than the United States. There's a focus in Canadian media on climate change, and
Yeah,
like personally, and I don't live there, so I can't say for sure, but you guys do. I have a hard time believing most Canadians care about climate change as much as it's portrayed in the media.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you on that. It's just it's pushed a lot in like in
it
our
depends where you
news and
go,
everything
honestly.
in politics. Yeah,
It
yeah,
depends
it
where you
also
go,
depends
honestly.
where you are. That's a
If
good point.
if you're in Montreal and like really liberal areas of Montreal, like yeah, they're gonna care if you like if you put your garbage on the floor. But if I mean, not that they don't put their garbage on the floor, but if you go to like let's say like outside the island, you know what I mean? If you go to like rural Quebec, let's say in Montreal, the mentality is completely different.
So they're less oriented towards climate change over there.
It's not that they're less oriented. It's that the culture is different. You know what I mean? Like the especially in like
Okay.
especially I wouldn't say in Quebec City, but like maybe outside Quebec City. More. I wouldn't say. I don't want to say. I just want to say where there's less of a population. Where
Yeah,
Oh, rural areas?
yeah,
Quebec.
that's it. More rural areas.
Uh,
They're not as there's not that academic mainstream you know thought that really permeates the environment. You know.
right. So I think Sorry if I put this on a tangent, but I think it's a good analogy to the foreign aid and foreign issues debate, which is that if you talk to people in Indiana, like the middle of nowhere, like in Stranger Things, which is the greatest show ever, but um, if you talk to people on the street in rural America, most of them honestly could give a shit about these issues, like whether we should give. I mean, they would probably be against giving foreign aid to any of these countries, including Israel, by the way. And in fact, I would say this whole fiasco with the squad and should they go to Israel or not, when people hear
That's
about
yeah.
that, they laugh at it. They don't even give a shit. It's like the dumbest, retarded shit ever. Like nobody cares. So the media focus on it really doesn't actually convey to anyone the real importance of the issue or anything, which is where I believe, hold on, I'll let you guys respond. But
Mhm.
this is the real failure of organizations like APAC and the organizations that support foreign aid to Israel, because when you predicate relationships on what is in fact a transaction at the end of the day, people look at that transaction and start to wonder really what is the value of it. Now, at the same time, a lot of people are aware that we also have given in the past and give in some ways still aid to the Palestinian Authority or other countries over there, and they don't like that either. But this type of debate and this type of finger pointing in both directions, it does not really engender any positive feeling toward any of those countries.
Yeah.
Okay, but fundamentally, we do agree that even from a credit-based system, okay, we do agree, or rather, not a credit-based system, but a system of mutual benefit. You do agree with me to a certain extent that there can be healthy relationships between countries. So you're not an isolationist to the conclusion, for the conclusion.
No, yeah, but like I said, I think that good relationships should be based not on foreign aid, but on amicable trade policy and good relations. The best relations should always be at the non-state level. If
Okay.
like the states, obviously, I don't want the U.S. to have tensions with any country if we can help it. I think if the U.S. has a good relationship with Egypt, great. If the U.S. has a great relationship with Israel, fantastic. If we have a good relationship with China, with Russia, I think it's horrible what's been happening the past few years. And Adrian, I think you agree with me with this whole RussiaGate bullshit. And
Yeah.
a lot of my audience is actually people who have been alienated by it, and really we don't we don't have to have a fantastic relationship with every country, and we're not going to agree with Russia on everything, and we're not going to we don't have to necessarily approve of everything they do either. And the same thing goes for Israel or for Turkey or any other country.
Yeah.
What I am saying is that the key to building good relationships is not the foreign aid. I think that's not the best way. That's not the best way to focus the efforts. In fact, I think it detracts from it because, like the example that you brought up with Joe Biden and Menachem Begin, and there have been ample examples since then. In 1991, President Bush pressured the Prime Minister Shamir at the time to go to the Madrid peace conference and in order to broker an agreement with Syria. Now, if he would have refused to go, there likely would have been some sort of deduction of foreign aid. Did anything come of that conference? Not really. So you're having somebody getting their heels dragged over to these conferences. What eventually resulted? Well, Shamir lost the next election because he was this, he was basically a sack of potatoes. He didn't really do anything necessarily dynamic. He was kind of the status quo prime minister, and he thought everything would stay the same because nothing has changed. President Bush, as long as I pretend that I'm going along with these peace conferences, I'm going to, continue to get this foreign aid. So he lost the election. Who came into office? Yitzhak Rabin. Then Yitzhak Rabin, some of his aides decided, well, we're going to go behind your back and get into contact with the PLO and sort of hoodwink the entire country into the peace process with the what do you call it? With the blessing of the Clinton administration. And then, therefore, all of this foreign aid has been conditional on some sort of nominal commitment to the peace process, which I think both of you would agree. Most Israelis are not really sincere when they're committed to a lot of these goals of the peace process because they think it's not in their interests, right?
In whose interest?
Yeah.
In the interest of the Israelis.
I mean, they've done plenty of things.
They've done it, but the issue is that the proof is that this is.
I mean, look, they conceded from Gaza. They conceded Gaza, right? And they didn't have to.
They didn't have to, but that was another example of the Israeli government, because they wanted that foreign aid. They did something that was detrimental to their own security. So the reality is that this foreign aid hangs above the head.
Was it for the foreign aid, or was it for peace? Which one was it? Which one do you think it really was? Do you think they really would have conceded Gaza had they known that there wouldn't have been peace after this?
I don't believe that they really believed there would be peace after this withdrawal. I think in fact it was one of the greatest examples of bad strategy in history, what they did. And this idea that they keep hanging it over, we withdrew from Gaza. Isn't that proof that we're people who, we want peace and good faith? That's irrelevant to the point. The point is the more you continue to accept foreign aid from a foreign country, that foreign country then has the right to demand things in return. And
okay, but you're saying that the United States does not at all benefit from Israel, which is just false.
That doesn't matter. The average citizen can't know how it benefits because, as you would probably acknowledge, a lot of the information and technology that changes hands is what's it called? Classified.
I mean, it just just goes to the military. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and most Americans, we vote for the U.S. government. We don't vote for the U.S. military. We vote for people to represent our needs as constituents. We don't vote for the U.S. military to appropriate funds.
I was just gonna say, if you want to make an argument for in this instance, where the foreign aid policy, that's something we can debate. But if you're asking me if fundamentally foreign aid in general, whether it's beneficial or not, especially in this case to the United States, I mean, you still haven't convinced me.
I don't think I need to convince you. I think I'm perfectly fine with you thinking whatever you want. But the issue that I'm talking about is something that you're not going to be able to avoid years and years down the line. This notion that the U.S. has to continue sending foreign aid to any country, whether it's Israel or whatever country you insert in place of it, is not something that the American public finds to be necessary. You can make this case that country A, they send all these benefits back, but if the citizens don't see anything tangible in that, then it doesn't really matter. There's a lot of good trade benefits between the U.S. and Israel, obviously in medical technology, obviously in
military.
But military. Look, nobody's under the illusion that we can just beat our swords into plowshares at this moment in time. But most Americans would agree that there's been astronomical waste in military spending for decades and decades. One of my viewers is a former naval submarine serviceman, and he.
Thank you for your service.
Right, but as a consequence of some of his experiences, he knows that the United States has wasted, untold sums of money on military technology that was either not going to be used or should never be used because it would probably lead to horrible consequences for humanity. And the real problem is that instead of focusing on ways that we could get a good relationship with Russia, maybe a better relationship with China, and obviously, Canada would benefit from it, Israel would benefit from it, we're focusing on ways we can get into more conflicts. We're focusing on ways we could sell more weapons to the Saudis in order to use in Yemen. And what's the end game? I mean, do you think Yemen's going to be put together into a functional country after that? I'm under no illusion that's going to happen, because we've seen what happened in Libya. We see what's still happening in Syria. Okay, and these countries are
Okay,
not countries where we can solve their problems for them.
look, I'm going to tell you. I'll tell you. I'm taking a look at it more from an international relations perspective. My idea is that, you know, I don't think that countries should necessarily be, you know, ultra liberal and open their doors completely. But I think that, you know, even realist states, you know, more now neo-realist states, you know, are, you know, sort of need to have that door open. You know what I mean? If you become so isolationist that you sort of
You
close
keep
the door.
you keep using the term isolationist, but you're equating that with the foreign aid. And
But what I'm
I've
what
explained
I'm saying
I've
what I'm
explained
saying
multiple
is that
times. I've explained
let
multiple
me
times that the relationship, in order to create a functional relationship, it doesn't have to be
let
predicated
me
on foreign
finish.
aid. Yeah.
Okay, no, I agree with you. But the debate is foreign aid. Okay, and you're asking me whether or not you're telling me that I'm for foreign aid. I'm telling you that I'm not for all foreign aid, but I'm telling you that, you know, for example, from an international relations perspective, I see that there is tension between nations as a whole. You know, and real estates sort of tend to be you know, more about military, more about building themselves up and making sure that they have a stronger military. And in today's realm, that's a bit different. So
I
what I'm
am
saying
Silar
is that
wants to I am
from,
Silar
from
wants to know what's your take. I'm assuming he's asking Vito. Vito, what's your take on open borders?
what do you think my take is on open borders?
Well, he's asking you.
Yeah, but that's just a nonsensical question. Like, but first of all, that's not the debate. Second of all, I'm not for. We've already discussed this, that I'm not for opening. You know, throwing charity to countries. That's not what I'm about. You know, I'm
Yeah,
not
but that's
about.
the question is, should the United States allow foreign refugees or migrants into the United States, I guess.
I mean, look, I don't think that I don't believe that there should be. Um, I don't think that, you know, I believe that all prospective immigrants and all asylum seekers, you know, there's a line. That's the truth. The truth is that there are borders. United States needs to be secure. Um,
So you're not for
Trump already went out of the way and created a pathway for citizenship for, like, what was it, like 1.8 million DACA children?
yeah,
Was that it?
yes.
Am I correct? So
Well, no,
that's
it
what I'm.
was Obama created the DACA program, and Trump
Uh,
is he's proposed to make the DACA program permanent in exchange for wall funding. But his question would be open borders, meaning should foreign refugees be allowed into the United States and given citizenship?
should illegal immigrants
Well,
be granted citizenship?
should migrants coming to the border, whether refugees or economic migrants,
They
be allowed into
will,
the United States?
like, do I want them to just come in and take the country's services? Like, of course not. What kind of question is that?
All right,
Like,
Siler, I guess that's
I mean, I'm not. Look, I'm Canadian. You know, it's. I'm not. Look, I'm not. I'm not a member of the KKK, but I'm not. You know, I'm not a member of Antifa either. You know what I mean?
so you're not for open borders.
I'm definitely for legal immigration.
Right. So you're against the flood of refugees and migrants into the United States without going
I
through the
think that's a
legal
hazard.
process.
I think that's dangerous. I think
Okay.
that's dangerous. I think
Okay.
there is definitely an aspect of.
Silar, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think this
We'll
guy has
see
the
in the
wrong
chat.
impression of me.
Okay. We'll see what he says. Okay.
Let them send them to the
Sorry.
Yukon Northwest Territory, maybe
Sorry,
Newfoundland.
go back to what you were talking about before. Wait, I let you get onto the I kind of let the chat take you onto a tangent. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So what I'm saying is that look like. Wait, no, I completely lost train of thought. What was I saying? Tell me.
What was he saying, Adrian?
Like you mean before we got onto the open borders thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, shit, I don't remember.
We can't all be
Any,
high.
okay. Anyway, anyways, what I wanted to say was, in terms of looking at it through an international relations perspective, I'm only gauging it from what I learned. You know what I mean? I'm only looking at it from the point of view of, more of an academic. I'm not. I don't necessarily consider myself an academic. I'm just telling you how I look at it, only because I studied it that way. So when I'm telling you I'm looking at it from an international relations perspective, I mean, I didn't study every single facet of international relations. I'm in no means, a sage of international relations, but I don't know nothing. And when I take a look at the way the world is, and from what I know, that the world is anarchic, there is nothing but anarchy. I believe that there is space for alliance building, and I believe that call it foreign aid, or whether you want to mask it as something else. I mean, that's ultimately what it is. It's just alliance building for me. So I guess that's if that's what you want me to sort of explain, as my just a little further on my position in that case.
All right. So you've brought up before, and this is something that came up earlier, that China and Russia and Iran are sending foreign aid to their proxies in the region, correct?
Into
to their proxy countries, countries that they support.
Well, Russia,
Iran, and China.
Well, Russia has didn't Russia deploy troops?
Right, they deployed troops to Syria, but I believe Iran is supporting the rebels in Yemen, and they're also supporting paramilitaries in Iraq.
And don't forget,
and Lebanon.
Don't forget, and Lebanon, Hezbollah, and also they're funding some activity for Hamas as well.
Right, but that foreign aid, if you're going to, so your point is that we need to deploy foreign aid in order to be a parallel counter to their foreign aid, correct? Would that be an appropriate comparison?
I know where you're going with this, but what I want to say before you get the chance to say that is that ultimately the world being in its anarchic state means that there is going to be this this fight to become the sort of like world leader in a sense. You know what I mean? It's sort of this gang. The world has this kind of like gang mentality. These states play with a gang mentality. It's not democratic states. You see, democratic states really do care about the well-being of their people. But the fact is that we're not dealing with democratic states. We're dealing with states with highly radical ideologies. And if they're not highly radical, then many of them are brain controlled. They're oppressed. The military is often a way for people to get away from those environments. And at the end of the day, these states are misguided. They're highly misled. They're corrupt at the highest levels. And that's what the reality is of what these countries are like, that we're up against.
Yeah, we can.
Would you not say that we're not too?
Yeah,
corrupt at the highest levels.
Israel is corrupt at the highest levels. There was a president that went to jail for rape. There was
but I'm not saying
there was a defense minister went to jail for rape. There was,
but you're comparing it with forcing. You're comparing it with forcing people to wear certain garments or forcing people to live a certain way. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about democracies.
Different.
Yeah,
but the truth of the matter is,
I'm saying I'm saying without the semantics. The truth is that the world I'm not saying it's at war at the moment, but there are battles, and they won't stop. They've never stopped.
No, but when you see the foreign aid being deployed by China, and I'll use China as the best example. So China sends loans to countries like Sri Lanka and all across Africa, and they say, well, we'll give you these massive loans, and in turn, you're gonna do this, build this infrastructure, or you're gonna plant tobacco fields in some cases, and we're going to build your country up. And then when those governments, which themselves are pretty dysfunctional, can't cough up the money to pay the loan back, guess what happens? That type of China usually will end up leveraging control of that infrastructure into its own hands. So granted, it's not the exact same template with the United States, but aid is a means to exert influence. It doesn't matter what country you're talking about. And this attempt to make a distinction between whether it's a democratic country extending the aid like the USA, or a non-democratic country like China is irrelevant. At the end of the
No,
day,
it's very
no, it's
relevant.
not. It's not relevant
It is very
because
relevant because
transactions are transactions.
do you want Iran and China and Syria and excuse me and Russia's influence in the world, or do you want an influence like United States and
Vito, at the
Israel?
end of the day, if you talk
No,
to
I'm
if you talk
asking
to
you.
an
Tell me
American,
which influence would you rather?
if you talk to an
Which influence
American
would you
or a
rather?
Persian or a Chinese person, and you ask them what a transaction involves, every one of them would agree that there
You know
has to
what?
be something going
I,
both ways.
I just
And
want to tell you that
yeah,
here in America and Canada, we're flying communist flags and flags of Bernie Sanders and socialist nonsense.
hmm
And in Hong Kong, they're singing the American national anthem, getting bullets to the face. That's what the reality is. There's obviously a reason why people want American influence. There's a reason for it, and that influence, some of that influence, comes through American foreign aid. Am I saying that it's perfect? I'm not saying that it's perfect. I'm not saying that the policy is perfect,
no,
but
we don't even need perfection. We need to see positive effect. And in many of these cases, there's no positive effect. And in the case of Israel, I just outlined to you how American foreign aid was used in order to corral the Israelis into a peace process that hasn't benefited the Israelis, and I would argue it hasn't benefited the Palestinians either. Would you say the Palestinians have been benefited from the past 20 to 30 years of whatever the fuck is going on right now? I don't think so.
okay,
So
but
I
I
wouldn't say
think
so either.
okay. I there's two things that I want to say to that. Obviously, from the Palestinian side, you have to realize that the leaders are way more corrupted than the Israeli leaders. Okay, all politicians are corrupt. All of them, the whole lot of them. Okay, we're not disputing that. What I'm saying is the Palestinians themselves don't see the money, the foreign aid that they're supposed to get. There was just a video that went viral just recently of these kids going shopping at a supermarket, and they had to buy milk from the United Nations aid to them. They had to buy it. They had to buy the powdered milk. They had to buy it, and normally it's just given to them. So, look, there's corruption. It goes down to the lowest levels. But what I'm saying is, from Israel's perspective, obviously it's helped them secure them. It's helped them defend their sovereignty before. I'm not disputing that. They on many counts they do need the money, but it still doesn't mean that if they didn't get the money that they wouldn't fight.
no, the whole premise that we're going to give countries, whatever the country is, aid out of the goodness of our heart is it's not the way things work. Not in the United States, not in any country. So when we give money to the Israelis, American citizens want some sort of return on the investment. This is not a country that believes in now. Yeah, maybe back in the day when JFK was president, and I think a lot of Americans were more innocent. People were like, "Yes, we'll do the Peace Corps, and we'll go over to Indonesia, and we'll help people, put their drapes up and um, shoot some fucking cows or something. I don't know what the hell they do down there, but the reality is that a lot of Americans are paying more close attention to this aspect of American policy, and they're not liking the results they're seeing. And if you think that the countries that you like are excluded from that equation, I mean, you got another thing coming. There's more and more public objection to the way American dollars are being used overseas. That includes in the Middle East, especially, and with respect to Israel is included in there. And
I'm
what's
sure.
the answer to that?
I'm
How
sure.
are you supposed to
I'm,
convince more Americans
I'm,
who are dealing with health care problems? We're dealing with crumbling infrastructure here. What's the rationale for telling them, well, we're going to have to
mm.
continue this relationship the exact same way it is, even though there's no sign of anything improving?
Okay, look, I mean, to say that nothing's improved, that just wouldn't be true. I mean, look at the military, look at the military innovations, look at the technological innovations.
That's
I
not
mean,
their
saying nothing.
priority. That's the priority of most Americans isn't that the military becomes stronger.
Okay, but what I'm saying to you is that foreign aid is not the priority either. And what you're saying is that it is the priority, and that domestic issues are not the priority. But the the problem also lies in how things are being conducted domestically as well. And I'm not saying that either the foreign policy or the domestic policy are perfect. But I'm not saying that you're gonna. I'm not saying that you're. I'm not saying that having sent foreign aid to Israel and vice versa has damaged or tarnished the relationship between Israel and America, and between Israel and its people and America and its people, when they both benefited from military innovations, technological innovations, and I would go as far to say as life-saving equipment.
The average person does not benefit from military innovations that typically don't even get used. Okay,
But that's just
the
military spending. You
no,
see, it's
but
just
we're focusing for the purposes of this. The vast majority of American foreign aid to Israel and to Egypt is in military spending. Okay, that's true. That's a fact. And the fact is that we're not seeing a safer region out there, and if anything, it just keeps getting worse in different ways. You know, the situation in Syria. If the U.S. had not been in Iraq to begin with, obviously that's a little bit of a different issue. You know, maybe this issue with Syria doesn't happen, and this idea that we're going to fix the region by giving money over to other countries, and it doesn't matter whether it's Israel or Turkey. Okay, it just is not working. And I would say that if the Israeli government and these eggheads up at APAC were to get a little wiser, all they would have to do is think, well, we have to realize that this situation is going to change sometime. It can't keep happening the way it is. I have people even in the chat right now, and you know, this is one of my viewers who's not really anti-Israel, but he says Israel gets two walls and border security we get mass migration and open borders. Who's fucking winning? So we have a party in Congress, the Democrats, that does believe in open borders for the U.S. and does believe in the foreign aid budget. So you might think that this is the wrong perception in the public,
wait,
but
hold on a second, It's Israel's fault that Donald Trump
that
can't get
is
the
the
wall.
way that is the way people perceive it. They think of
Okay, but that's just silly, honestly. You
it
know that's
might
not the
it might be
reason.
silly, but that's the way the perception is because you do have
Okay.
Democrats, you do have Nancy Pelosi. You like to focus on Donald Trump, but
Yeah, no, look,
Nancy
you have to appreciate
Pelosi
that
Nancy
my
Pelosi
experience is different than yours. You're an American, I'm a Canadian,
right, but
you know?
Nancy
I'm
Pelosi
just
is
commenting from
herself.
what I know.
She's a supporter of American foreign aid to any country that comes and asks, including Israel, and she's a proponent essentially of open borders, and that perception is very very lucid to the person on the street, to people who are against open borders. That's probably why Sylar, who is a bit of a provocateur, but whatever, that's why he would ask the question of open borders, because people know that there's a wall between the West Bank and the rest of Israel, and
Hmm.
people associate Soros erroneously with that problem because Soros is
With
is
foreign aid.
yeah, Soros is in point of fact for open borders in Israel. just so you know, Sylar. But the fact is that you could
Yeah, I
go
think
on.
Sylar has us wrong.
Sylar,
I don't think he knows. I don't think
Sylar
he
and
knows
me are both.
the intellectual Jew dark web. I don't think he knows it.
Yeah, me and Sylar are watchers of this other show, The Hard Bastard.
Yeah,
So anyway, the problem is that you do have a lot of people who are on the side of the foreign aid, who are for open borders, and it's just true. Okay, so people want to focus on Trump. Well, what happens when Trump dies? What happens when Trump leaves office or whatever? You have to
yeah, I
think
agree with
about
you.
the day after tomorrow. Okay?
I am. But what I'm saying to you is that the relationship the relationship's gonna is gonna change one way or another. If it's good now, if the relationship between the world leaders are good now, why not take advantage of it?
No,
I'm not
because you're not taking advantage of it by accepting the
you.
foreign aid. You're merely, what you're doing is you're saying, well, the budget is there, so we might as well use it. That's the same approach that you see from
I'm not. I'm saying that Israel needs the weaponry. Okay,
so they should buy it.
they need the help.
They should buy the
Okay,
weapons. They should develop the weapons. If they can't buy the weapons, they should try to develop them. If they
the
want
same
to.
Well,
weaponry that
correct
they're
me
the
if
same
I'm wrong, but
weaponry that they're
doesn't
getting.
Israel have a large industry when it comes to making weapons of war right now?
Yeah,
I'm
Well,
pretty sure that they
they
do.
have a good industry of developing weapons. That's what I'm saying to you. So the same weapons that they're developing are getting sent back to the United States.
and what do most American voters want? Do you think they want more wars and more involvement and more military spending? Because that's not
Nobody
what I'm
wants that.
hearing.
I don't want that. I don't want that either. But you're um you're mixing up with you're thinking that America is just in a bubble. America is not in a bubble, and that's the way that I'm taking a look at it.
No,
Understand?
you are looking at it from
Domestically,
your own bubble. That's the real
no, I'm
problem.
not. I'm not looking at it from a bubble.
You're looking at this relationship as if it's a
I'm
special
looking at it from the
relationship.
outside. I do think that it's a special relationship. I think that Canada also benefits from the special relationship between the United States.
Yeah, you think it's a special relationship when in reality, this is my point. That it's been my point the entire evening. Every relationship is transactional. There's always a give and a take, and
Yeah.
don't be surprised,
No,
Vito.
I'm not at all being naive.
Don't be
I'm not
surprised.
at all being naive.
Let's say in next year you have President Kamala Harris,
Beto.
and we're all, I guess Sylar is basically dousing himself in gasoline and running around in
No.
Sacramento, and
He'd be long gone before that. Yeah.
but in any case, President Kamala Harris, in her first meeting with Bibi, she says to him, hey, I think that you should unilaterally withdraw from Hebron. You should unilaterally disengage all of your troops from the area around Nablus, the Jordan
And if you
Valley.
don't, we're gonna cut your foreign aid.
Exactly. So
let's see what they do.
So you're thinking. So what's your chip? What's your
There,
bargaining chip here? Nothing.
There's
You don't
no
hold any
bargaining
chip.
There aren't, but the Jews never had one. That's what I'm saying to you. The only thing that they had was whatever forces they had. So
Okay,
what's changed?
At
So what's
point,
changed?
At that point,
You know what the
you're
difference
saying,
is? Is that today the United States is a democracy, Israel is a democracy. There is an alliance between them.
Lebanon is a democracy.
Not exactly. And I'm not too happy. Personally, I'm not too happy about the foreign aid that gets sent to Lebanon.
Right, but there could be some pencil neck in DC that says to you, look, we have these reasons X, Y, and Z why we would send foreign aid to Lebanon, and we want to sustain our relationship with Lebanon because we want an outlooking foreign policy, and you're an
I'm not talking.
isolationist, Vito. You don't
Okay, I'm
want
not talking
us to
about.
develop our relationship with Lebanon, do you?
What I'm saying
They
is
would use the exact
the.
same rationale with
Oh,
you
oh,
that
okay,
you've
but
been using with
my
me.
rationale is that I believe that democratic states can prosper. Realistically, Lebanon is not a democratic state. It's a controlled state. It's a puppet state by Hezbollah.
Do you think that the U.S. should be sending aid to Egypt?
Well,
Okay, wait, Adrian, go for it because you haven't spoken. Are
Well, all
are
I
we gonna
was
wrap
going
up
to say
soon?
on that
Yeah,
is
let's
that
do.
like you could.
How much more
Sorry,
time you want to go?
we can go for like another 2 minutes. What do you think? Wrap everything up.
Okay. What
Go
about
In a
for
you?
it.
few minutes, yeah, no
Yeah.
problem. Anyway, what I was going to add about that is that some could make the argument, though, is like you say, Palestine is a puppet state for Hezbollah, but some could very easily make the argument
Lebanon.
that they put for Lebanon.
Yeah,
That kind
Lebanon is
of okay. That kind of actually defeats what I was like. Doesn't apply to what I was going to say. Then never mind.
okay. But if you want to talk about proxy forces, I mean, you could say that Iran um, does do some funding for Hamas. If that helps your point at all.
Well, mostly what I was going to say, and that's like I thought you were meant talking about Palestine, and I was going to say like so you could make the argument that that the Palestinians don't really have much of a choice but to take either Hezbollah or Hamas for their leadership. For the like, I mean, it's not like they have much of a state right now.
They don't have a choice
Well, I mean,
anymore.
yeah, they don't have a choice anymore,
Exactly.
anyways. Hamas runs the state exactly. Okay, but that's what I mean. Like you have that's exactly what I mean. Like who else is going to help Israel defeat the terrorism that is these states? You know what I mean? Like
Israel has to.
I don't know if they have the capabilities alone. I mean, I hope they do.
Well,
But I
that's
mean, look,
why we sold them those weapons. Okay, we didn't sell those.
exactly,
We didn't sell those.
exactly,
We didn't sell them those weapons. We didn't sell those weapons to them, so that would be America's job to manage what's going on there. And in my opinion, if Israel wants to continue to be, a country that has sovereignty, that has its own foreign policy, the best track is to refuse foreign aid, to go it alone, to do a better foreign policy based on trade with all these countries. That's how they're doing it with India. That's how they're doing it with a bunch of these other countries in the region. So that's I mean, I guess, do you guys want to do final words or?
I think that was a good final word. That was top. That was top notch.
All right, you, Adrian.
I think we've all found some pretty common ground. Yeah. By the way, Chris, I said that Beto should be the next president of the United States. That's what I truly believe, honestly. No. I'm trolling.
Does Beto believe that?
No, I don't think that it's United States. I don't think it's two impacts. I don't think it's United States' job, nor do I think it's Canada's job to take care of the world. But I think that they certainly have a job in influencing the world. If you're okay with that answer, because I know that might sound like a pretty lefty answer to you guys. I know you guys are pretty right wing with me, so.
All right. Well, I want to thank our two guests, of course.
Hey, thank you. A big applause, a big round of applause for Mr. Bold. Yeah.
So we had, of course, Johnny Vito doesn't have a YouTube channel, right? But there's
no, I don't.
So Just My Stupid Opinion, of course, we've seen him several times. He is from Canada, as is Johnny Vito. So you can subscribe to his channel on YouTube, Just My Stupid Opinion. And then you have a different Twitter handle now, right?
Yeah, it's I don't really use it much anymore, I'll admit, but it's you can find me at Red Blooded Leaf.
Okay. And any other places you want people to follow you?
No, not really. That's about it. I mean, you can subscribe to BitChute. It's the same.
That
same
is
thing
a
as
real
my YouTube
cool.
channel.
That is a real cool handle, man. Red Blooded Leaf.
Well, thank you.
That is real Canada right there.
Well, thank you.
So
yeah, no, I don't really use many other platforms.
All this apologizing and thanking. It's true Canadian right here, Adrian.
all right,
I do my best.
Johnny Vito, do you have anything you want to share, like a place people can reach you, or do you want to just let it hang?
Yeah. So I mean, for those who don't know, Bold's written a couple pieces for my website, kingdavid.news. It just got hacked, unfortunately, so I'm in the process of rebuilding it. You can take a look out for King David's Journal. Naturally, from what you've been hearing, it has a lot to do with Israel. I do a lot of conservative topics, mostly relating between United States, Israel, Canada, obviously as well. And I just wanted to say that I really appreciate you having me on the show. It's been a real delight and a real great opportunity to actually to speak with you guys and to talk to you, Adrian. I know we've been talking for so long, but we needed our fellow Canadian Bold to link us together. So
Our honorary Canadian.
our honorary Canadian.
I'm gonna pretend
Trudeau 2.0.
I'm gonna pretend I didn't hear that. Anyway, so thanks everyone for joining. I guess I'll read the audience names. So we had Impex, Larry Gerke, Lennon McCarthy, also subscribe to Lennon McCarthy YouTube channel. Or is it Lennon? Did they erase your channel too?
Larry,
he's been
my
banned
blog
from
is your Hittites Journal.
Lennon McCarthy's been banned from literally everywhere. I am
That's so
Sidebar.
funny. You guys are funny. You guys are funny.
Who else is here? Kiana was up there earlier. Kiana Rainey. And anyway, the rest of you, screw off. Have a good night.
Yeah, I just want to say one last thing,
Yeah.
guys. Bold is actually a real good investigative journalist. This guy takes time to actually this guy actually does his research and comes prepared with everything. He does crazy stories. Honestly, if you haven't checked him out, look at his stuff up on Minds. He'll post a link somewhere there. This guy actually is brilliant. I'm not lying to you. Not just because he's a friend of mine, but actually because he's a brilliant guy. So check him out, please.
So on that note, yeah, we are going to. I've been hinting a lot at this investigation I've been running. It does have to do with what was published in the Federalist and what Hard Bastard was talking about on I think it was Saturday night when he read my story. So we are basically being confronted right now with a whole new type of movement going on in terms of public protest. But we will be talking about that again. Maybe one of you guys would like to join one time. I don't know if, I mean, I think Adrian has also read about this. But yeah, thanks for the generous praise, guys, and I'll talk to you guys later. Have a great night.
Take care. You too. Ciao, man.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, guys.